Everyone is obsessing over folding screens and whatever the next iteration of spatial computing is supposed to be. But frankly, you are looking at the completely wrong Apple product right now. While the tech press was distracted by shiny headsets and folding glass, Tim Cook's engineering team just quietly assassinated the high-end custom PC market. Honestly, nobody is talking about the sheer scale of what they just pulled off. But this could actually matter, because it fundamentally shifts the power dynamic on our desks. We have been waiting literal years for a machine that respects the needs of experienced professionals. And it seems the wait is finally over. Welcome back. Let's separate the real leaks from the noise today. Because after endless rumors, dubious supply chain reports, and an absolute mountain of fake renders floating around the internet, the 32-inch Apple iMac Pro has finally materialized. This isn't just another lazy spec bump. This is a calculated, brutal strike against the very concept of a modular professional workstation. For the last 3 years, Apple effectively forced those of us who need serious computing power into a frustrating corner. If you wanted desktop power, you had to buy a Mac Studio or a Mac Pro, and then basically mortgage your house to afford the Pro Display XT. It was a fragmented, ridiculously expensive mess that left all-in-one lovers completely abandoned. It felt a bit like the 2013 trash can Mac Pro era. A beautifully flawed concept that left us begging for practicality. But behind the scenes, Apple's industrial design team wasn't ignoring the iMac Pro. They were just waiting until they could engineer a display and a silicon architecture that wouldn't literally melt under a heavy, sustained workload. Let's break down exactly what we are looking at. Starting with the design changes. The new iMac Pro doesn't reinvent the wheel. It aggressively refines it. If you remember when we first saw the original iPhone in 2007 and marveled at how much screen they packed into the footprint, this is the modern desktop equivalent. The bezels are practically microscopic now, measuring a rumored 3 millimeters thin, creating an aggressive, edge-to-edge glass canvas. It's a mature, sophisticated industrial design that will command attention in any high-end studio or corner office. It retains the sleek aluminum chassis, but the overall footprint is only marginally larger than the old 27-inch Intel model we all relied on for a decade. More importantly, rumors suggest the stand finally includes built-in height adjustment, meaning you won't need to prop a $5,000 machine up on a stack of old textbooks anymore. Moving to the display and build quality, this machine completely redefines the term Retina. Display analyst Ross Young dropped the hammer on this one early on, predicting that Apple would completely skip standard OLED for this machine. According to highly detailed supply chain reports out of the ELEC, he was dead on. Apple went straight to a custom fabricated ultra-microLED matrix. What's interesting here is why that actually matters for your daily work. It matters because OLED burns in. When you are dropping top dollar on a professional machine that is going to be used for static Final Cut timelines, persistent coding interfaces, and static menus for 10 to 12 hours a day, burn-in is entirely unacceptable. This 32-inch microLED panel delivers the pitch-black contrast ratios of OLED alongside a blinding 2000 nits of sustained brightness, without degrading over time. But the absolute kicker, the feature that genuinely changes the daily experience, is that they finally, mercifully, brought 120 Hz promotion to a 6K desktop display. Moving windows, scrubbing 8K, red raw footage, or scrolling through a massive data set feels incredibly fluid. I remember when we made the jump to Retina displays in 2014. This feels like an equally seismic shift in visual fidelity. But a beautiful screen is just a massive glass brick if it doesn't have the engine to push those pixels. Let's talk about performance. What Apple hid behind that glass is an absolute masterclass in silicon engineering. Welcome to the M5 Ultra. Based on recent TSMC 3 nanometer yields that Digitimes was tracking over the last quarter, Apple took two incredibly powerful M5 Max chips and fused them together using their next-generation UltraFusion architecture. The result is a monolithic piece of silicon housing up to 134 GPU cores, configured with a staggering 512 gigabytes of unified memory. Just let that sink in for a second. We are talking about half a terabyte of RAM that your CPU, GPU, and neural engine can all tap into simultaneously at a mind-bending bandwidth of 1.6 terabytes per second. If you are a high-end video editor, a 3D animator running complex physics simulations, or an AI developer running massive local language models, you literally cannot bottleneck this machine. You can stack adjustment layers and color grades in DaVinci Resolve until you are blue in the face, and the playback will not drop a single frame. Those of us who remember rendering standard definition video overnight in the early 2000s and praying the machine didn't crash will find this level of real-time power hard to fathom. Of course, because this is a desktop workstation, we need to talk about power delivery and thermal management. You are probably wondering about the heat, right? You can't just stuff a supercomputer into a 1-inch thick slab of aluminum without it turning into a space heater. Ming-Chi Kuo actually detailed this thermal redesign weeks ago. They completely redesigned the internal thermal architecture, implementing a massive edge-to-edge vapor chamber that spans the entire rear housing. This is paired with dual centrifugal fans that pull cool air from the bottom vents and exhaust it silently out the back. If the leaked schematics from Makotakara are accurate, they have pulled off an acoustic miracle. You can render a 45-minute 4K documentary, and this machine remains eerily silent, avoiding the heavy thermal throttling that usually plagues all-in-one chassis. If you are an audio engineer or a podcaster who records in the same room as your workstation, the elimination of fan noise bleed into your studio microphones is worth the price of admission alone. Let's move on to connectivity, because this is where Apple finally admitted they were completely wrong in the past. The dongle era is officially dead for the pros. Back in the FireWire 800 days, we actually had decent, reliable ports built right into our machines, and it seems Apple has finally remembered that. Tucked cleanly behind the right side of the display, you get 4 Thunderbolt 5 ports. Yes, Thunderbolt 5. Delivering 80 gigabits per second of bidirectional bandwidth. This means you can daisy-chain massive external NVMe RAID arrays without breaking a sweat. They kept the 10 gigabit Ethernet tucked away inside the power brick for seamless integration and a perfectly clean desk. Furthermore, in a massive win for photographers and videographers, they integrated a full-size SD Express card slot right on the edge of the display. No reaching around back, no ugly hubs dangling off your desk. Imagine seamlessly offloading terabytes of footage directly into your machine without searching for a dongle buried in your drawer. Quick question for the editors watching right now. Does having the SD card slot directly on the side actually make you want to ditch your dedicated desktop hub? Or are you too deeply tied to your current dock setup? Let me know your honest thoughts down in the comments. Now, let's separate the reality from the hype and talk about the pricing strategy, because this is the real Trojan horse of the whole operation. The new iMac Pro is rumored to start at $5,499. I know your wallet just groaned. And yes, the Apple tax is very real. But let's actually break down the math for a second like rational adults. A base Mac Studio with an M series Ultra chip currently costs around $4,000. Add a $5,000 Pro Display XD, which, remember, is only a 60 Hz panel, and that ridiculous $1,000 piece of metal they call a stand, and you are 10 grand deep for a setup that is fundamentally inferior to this new all-in-one. When you contextualize the pricing against the broader workstation market, the math starts to look incredibly favorable. Apple is effectively giving you a superior 6K promotion display for a fraction of the cost, purely because they want to lock the professional tier permanently into their ecosystem and wipe out high-end Windows workstations in studios worldwide. It is aggressive, it is brilliant, and honestly, it is an undeniable value if your time equals money. So, what is my trusted opinion on all this? What's believable? And what might just be marketing fluff? The 32-inch form factor, the Ultramicrold, and the M5 Ultra are absolute locks based on the historical cadence of TMC's manufacturing lines and recent supply chain data. However, the whisper of completely silent thermals under an 8K render load feels like classic Apple marketing spin. Physics is still physics, and pushing 134 GPU cores will generate noise, no matter how elegant that vapor chamber is. Expect a low hum, not total silence. But here is my smart observation. Apple isn't just selling a computer here, they are selling you back your time. If you are just managing spreadsheets, writing emails, or doing light 1080p editing, absolutely do not buy this machine. Pick up an M4 Mac Mini as your daily driver and save your hard-earned money. This level of power is entirely wasted on basic tasks. But if you are a professional whose biggest daily friction point is waiting for a progress bar to load, the iMac Pro isn't an expense. It is a literal time machine that buys your life back. I'm still doing well. Yeah, career. To summarize the most important takeaways, the king of all-in-ones has returned, delivering unmatched micro-LED display technology, unthrottled M5 Ultra performance, and the return of actual professional ports, all for a price that severely undercuts their own modular setups. It took absolutely no prisoners, making the messy, cable-strewn desks of modular setups feel instantly antiquated. If this breakdown brought you value and saved you from reading 50 confusing supply chain spec sheets, do me a massive favor and hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and ring the bell. You won't want to miss our upcoming deep dive benchmark tests, where we see if this thing actually throttles under sustained pressure. Now, I leave you with this. Does this 32-inch beast make you want to immediately sell your Mac Studio and your dual external monitors, or are you still deeply committed to the modular desktop life? Let me know your honest thoughts down in the comments, because I want to see if professionals are actually willing to go back to the all-in-one form factor after all these years. Thanks for watching, stay productive, and I'll see you in the next one.